Hello and welcome back to the LCS and the LCS waiting room, where one best-of-5 series spells the difference between a spot at Worlds and a season cut short.
I don't know if he appreciates what he's eating.
Is this the same day, or has this been stitched together over
That's
time?
That's for you to,
This has definitely been
figure out
together.
yourself.
What's Daniel doing?
This is the guy who hands out the buckets for the crowd, by the way, and throws poros into it.
Yeah, that's
Oh my God.
Grease-covered poro. Bacon grease.
Oh, guys, don't say no more.
Lord.
Please.
Breakfast was good today, though. I'll tell you that much. We've got Solo on the desk with us. You're also going to be casting a game, but joining us for the full day as we watch EG and TL duke it out. Thank you so much for joining us, my friend, and on short notice at that. Let's get into it. Cloud9, they defeat TSM, claim a spot in the grand final.
100 Thieves.
100 Thieves.
Whoa!
Prompter lied.
Thank you.
It said in Prompter TSM, it was 100 Thieves that they took down just yesterday in a pretty surprising fashion, I guess. A lot of people were expecting to be close, but a 3-1 that honestly looked pretty good for them. Even the game that they lost, a lot of people thought they had the better draft, and it was just about these kind of massive team fights where they got a triple flick back there by Abadaga.
Yeah, the series started in an amazing fashion. That backdoor from Jensen to Orianna was just, the moment you had that one and the crowd is reacting the way they did, you're like, okay, this is going to be a good series.
Yeah, and the coolest thing for me was, I'm sure we'll see a team fight with it, but the composition they ran in the fourth game, because I think it just showed a difference in how they can play as a team, and we talked about like the diversity of these two bot lanes, and I actually really enjoyed watching this Neela composition.
Were you surprised, by the way, Solo, of just seeing Cloud9 just kind of tear through the playoff bracket?
A little bit. I think I want to give a big shout out to their coaching staff because they got a lot of flack in spring for some of their shortcomings, but I feel like they've had the most creative drafts and like the biggest champion pools for most of this playoffs. And that's kind of been like the big difference maker, I think, in a lot of their series. They seem like they just have the best prep coming in, and that's kind of like the most important thing, just making sure that you're more prepared than the other team and the other coaching staff.
Yeah.
C9 Systems winning out in the end.
Honestly, watching, I said it to you guys yesterday on the desk, watching Max Waldo in those like sideline interviews, like during game, I love listening to him. One, he just gives a ton of insight, and I think is actually willing to kind of divulge enough information to help things make sense as to why teams are making the decisions they're making without revealing too much strategy. And also, I just love how excited he is to talk about it. Like, that's what I get out of it. And it goes to your point where I think they really are. They're putting a lot of their energy into coming up with creative stuff that's going to catch people off guard. And, hey, if it buys you a win in a best-of-5, sometimes that's all you need to kind of push yourself over the edge and get those 3 wins and move on to the next round.
Yeah, and we saw that when teams are going to have to ban like Kennen versus them. They're banning Olaf already, so they
Thinking
got a lot
about that
of
Zillion just in
in
case.
there too as a ban randomly.
True.
Yep.
Right? And now they can win with a 13% damage share Orianna. So I really don't know, you know, again, I don't know what the approach is.
100% Nexus kill true.
It's damn true. All right, well, taking a look at the bracket, we only have 3 best-of-5s remaining in the LCS postseason today. It's EG versus TL. The winner will move on to face 100 Thieves in that losers bracket final out there in Chicago. Winner of that on to challenge C9, who await the winner in the grand final. It's been a pretty crazy postseason. I know we asked you about your perspective on C9's run, Solo, but just more generally, when you look at this bracket, the upsets that have occurred, the fact that there's not been a single sweep, from a player perspective, how do you feel about that? Did you see that coming? Did the league feel this close exiting spring or the regular split?
I was definitely surprised that the top teams didn't separate themselves further when we got into playoffs. I thought that like the extra prep time and kind of getting more serious for the veteran players would make the difference. But yeah, I mean, I never thought that we'd get into a situation where every series is best-of-5, like all the way to 5. The games are really close, and it seems like anyone can win of the remaining teams. I mean, I know C9's really hot right now, but I mean, I think 100 Thieves had a tough loss. They can come back, and EG and TL, like, they kind of got humbled a bit. Maybe they can make a run. So it seems like anybody's game still.
Yeah, my expectation was like the teams that, I guess in this case, the Golden Guardians, or even in your case, actually, TSM, because Golden Guardians as a team made that sub having like River, and they really needed that time to like build up synergy. And you guys made a lot of changes and really felt like you guys needed time to build up that synergy. Did you feel like that break week really helped you guys?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our split, especially with me coming in, was playing catch up. And so every week that we had was just like, felt like we were raising our ceiling more and more. Yeah, I mean, I think the extra time like definitely helped us, and I think it'll help out the other teams as well. It takes like, every once in a while you need to lose games and figure out like what's going wrong with your system. Your system.
Lose is improve.
System.
Lose is improve.
Even though like a team like EG had like a really bad loss against like C9, everyone was shocked. I think that kind of tough scenario really builds like camaraderie, and teams can really like step up to the occasion afterwards.
And they're definitely not a stranger to the situation. Remind everybody, they won spring by playing through the lower bracket. Before we get into the matchup today itself in kind of a micro sense, I wanted to pull up our Samsung SSD Fast 5. Again, what we've done here is taken the two teams that are stepping on the stage today and compared them to the LCS averages in their positions and for the metrics that we track.
Interesting to me, Danny falling behind the speed at which you get 10K gold. I think we'll be covering that a little bit more, but you can see Sama well ahead the pace of the LCS average in playoffs. He's been doing quite well. There's been some rough games where in mid to late game team fights, people have had a little bit of criticism towards him, but laning phase has been very good for Hans.
Yeah, and I mean, irregardless of the stats there for, I guess that's literally a double negative, for the jungle is Inspired and Santorin just being one of our best junglers in the LCS. And I just love being able to see it, surely, of course, above LCS average on that metric, but I just think it's going to be really fun to watch them play. Inspired is a really creative player who doesn't necessarily need the, need the farm, but definitely can do a lot with it. Santorin just shamelessly going after every lane.
Emily, that's a near 3-minute difference in Mythic completion time from mid laners, Bjergsen to jojopyun.
Yeah, I was looking at that, and I was also looking at the top 100 CS between Bwipo and Impact is really interesting to me, because I think that's more of a reflection of like what they play and then how their teams play around them, especially since TL will sometimes save that counter pick for Bwipo, for him to throw something a little bit spicy up there in the top lane. But yeah, I mean, this is also a reflection of both mids. I'm trying to remember if there was a thing where he just didn't build a Mythic first, because I feel like part of it has to be. But then also Bjergsen is, in my opinion, a lot more laning focused, where JoJo has made a point to try to roam to sides as frequently as possible.
Yeah, it's interesting because anecdotally, I feel like I remember or see Bjergsen going double Dorans a lot in lane, which I would have thought would slow him down to his Mythic. But the fact that he's still beating JoJo, I mean, yeah, maybe speaks to just, again, playstyle, piecemeal builds, or the champion that you're playing. But either way, I know that there's been lots of talk throughout the split of Bjergsen as a top laner, and JoJo looking to diversify his strategies a little bit more, help out the side lanes, and maybe that's indicative of just that. From here, we have to talk about the teams as a whole, the expectations of these rosters coming in, kind of what they've set themselves up for. So Mark, I'm going to hand it over to you to start on the Team Liquid side of things, because this has been a conversation.
Let's go.
Not just for summer, honestly, for the entire year, and even before that for this organization.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about with all the graphics we're going to go over here. Is just setting the stakes for this matchup, because this is the last world spot on the line. And this roster, put together by Steve and Team Liquid, had obviously world aspirations in mind, championship aspirations. And when you look at the accomplishments one by one as we go through here, it is crazy that they are in this position battling from here. Bwipo, one of the most accomplished Western top laners of all time, a Worlds final appearances, 4 Worlds appearances overall, tons of all-pro votes. You just continue down, and it's star-studded player after star-studded player. Santorin only had the 1 championship way back in the day. That's why he's so hungry to pick up another. But during that time, 5-time runner-up. He has been so close so many times and still making Worlds over and over again. Bjergsen, you have the most accomplished mid laner in LCS history by a mile. 4 MVPs, 5 Worlds appearances, 2 MSIs, 6-time LCS champion. He's absolutely studded top to bottom. Sama as well, tons of Worlds appearances, has not won the title yet, and I think that's one of the things he's definitely searching for, and hopefully they can try and make this run now through the lower bracket to make it happen. And then CoreJJ, what needs to be said, obviously the only world champion on this roster, absolutely disgusting performances across the multiple regions that he's played in now, and that kind of explains why so many people look at this lineup, you look at the resources that invested into them. Their budget makes sense when you look at the amounts there. It makes sense why they paid so much and why they have such high expectations.
Their budget makes sense, but that's what calls into question their performance, their record so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think you take, like, we were talking about this in our pre-show meeting, we were talking about TL, right? Like, you take 1 or 2 of these players and you're like, you can build an entire team, an entire championship winning team around just 1 or 2 of these players. And this is nothing new to the way that TL has built their rosters for years now. They are, kind of plucking other players in and like placing them within the TL system. And this is the ultimate iteration of that, in my opinion, right? In terms of like the players' accolades in multiple regions, this is by far, I think, the largest TL roster in terms of, I'm not sure if it in terms of budget, but in terms of like expectations
Yes.
and past performances.
Yeah, name, power, and accolades for sure.
Yeah.
100%. Like, people always talk about super teams in the perspective of, like, on paper, this looks amazing. And there's, like, so much, as you can see, the list of accolades is basically a book. It's multiple papers of accolades. And so the players feel it. They always talk about the expectations on them, the pressure that's on them. This is also extending from last split, in which, of course, they failed to even get to the finals themselves. They were in part of finals weekend, and they have the opportunity to get there. The fact that they feel so much more difficult that they are in losers semifinals and have to face the first seed, it's going to be a banger matchup.
Now, so I'm curious your opinion on this, because this is, not a unique approach to building a team. We've seen super teams in all regions, some having more success than others. What do you think determines whether or not one succeeds or fails? Because again, as Emily said, even if you just told me Bjergsen and Santorin are back on a team together, I'd be like, that's maybe a finals, an LCS finals team right there, regardless of who else is around them. But then you stack Bwipo, Hansama, and CoreJJ with them as well. And I was on board with everyone else. This is an LCS championship or bust kind of team.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely surprising. I think one thing to consider is that even though they have all these like star players, I mean, the other team's got pro players too. Other team's got pro players too. And I think even though you have all these talented players, there's only like certain ways you could really like play around them, and jungler has to be at certain areas at a certain time, and there has to be synergies, and all those things can be lost just because everyone's individually so good. And I think part of it maybe like coaching staff hasn't done enough, or maybe there's too many cooks in the kitchen sort of thing. It's not just like this automatic, oh, everyone's individually good. They should be able to be a good team. I mean, that takes a lot of work and takes some innate synergy as well.
Yeah, I think it's also the case where like they're still alive. They're still running, trying to make the run through the lower bracket here.
You're not calling them dead yet?
No, they're not dead yet, but I think it just speaks like we want more out of this team, and they can give us that. And if they are able to make the run through the losers bracket, qualify for Worlds, who knows, make some noise there, I think a lot of people will forgive some of the bumpy road to get to this point.
Yeah, and I mean, I was interested because for you as a player, it's always kind of been, always had a style and identity that has made teams better, and it's made teams have like pretty much a solid focus. A lot of times with teams that are super teams, it's like, well, they can do anything. You play through top, you can play through bottom. How much do you think that's a problem, or do you think that's not an issue at all?
The only time that really seemed like an issue for TL had a lot to do with like Bwipo and his picks.
Yeah.
I think him trying to be like picking Urgot, picking Set, being just like a little bit off the wall, picking Olaf every game. I think that when you're playing against lower competition, it's fine.
Yeah.
But when you're playing against like top teams that are just going to play meta, you see it's like not nearly as useful. And it seems like they've kind of solved that problem where he's playing Ornn now every game, because I mean, Ornn is broken.
Who enlightened him into the I was going to say a certain somebody proved that to us late in the summer split. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, not everyone can just be like, oh, I want to be such a unique player and play all my counter picks. I mean, it takes up a lot of draft resources, and it takes up a lot of like in-game resources. So now that they're humbled a little bit and they're like, okay, maybe we can't win playing this way. We need to get back on more normal things. I think that's definitely pushed them in the right direction. It's a little bit late, so I'm not sure that they're 100% there and ready to win, but it's at least good that they've realized that a little bit.
Can they cobble it all together in time is definitely the question. But if we're going to talk about expectations for TL, we're going to have to do the same for Evil Geniuses. And their expectations, while maybe are of an equivalent degree, they came about in a very different way, Emily. This was very much a set of expectations that they kind of brought unto themselves.
Yeah, it was weird because even with the finals victory that we're seeing here, this was not expected, right? They made a huge lower bracket run. Even going into Houston, a lot of us bet against them just because we felt like maybe we hadn't seen a championship winning play from this team. And they were only 9-9 in the spring season, right? And they had to, I believe, play a tiebreaker just to get into fourth place. Yeah, right here. We see the bracket and then swap over to summer, where they're just dominating in the regular season and have had a comparatively disappointing bracket run.
Definitely the case. I mean, we talk about Team Liquid having all the name power. There's a lot of name power in this too, between Impact, Inspired, back-to-back Worlds appearances. You also have Vulcan, who's been a stud. It was just that with the younger players, there was a question of how long it would take. It was instant. In spring, when they made that lower bracket run, now they're in a weird position where it's a question of, can they make Worlds from here? Because anytime a team wins in spring, they almost always make it back to Worlds. There's only been twice in history, you would say. There's DRX, and then there was C9, but even that has an asterisk because that MSI was canceled.
Right.
Yep.
And so it was a situation where like they didn't get the international experience that can sometimes help you in your summer journey. And so they are in this really weird position now for EG.
Yeah, it's a weird set of circumstances where TL has all the expectation, but haven't lived up to it yet. And then for EG, there wasn't a ton of expectation, but because of how they performed, right now all of a sudden it's like, well, just do it again. Like, you didn't change anything. You should just be able to do it again. And so it has made kind of this drop off here in the postseason a little tough to understand.
Yeah, I mean, because in the regular season, it didn't look like they had that potential MSI hangover that people talk about. They were just crushing it in the regular season. I mean, Solo, when you came in middle of the season, like, how'd you feel watching EG and playing against them?
They definitely seemed like the best team. And you're right that they didn't seem like they were really having any problems from post MSI. If anything, it seemed like it made them more hungry to get back to international competition and really show that they can beat a team that's like G2. They can actually beat G2. But I think that a lot of that early success and how easy it was in that lower bracket run in spring, I think that once they got challenged by a team like C9 and they kind of like picked them apart a little bit in that series and identified a lot of their weaknesses, really kind of like worried them. It seemed like they were a little bit rattled from that whole series, and they're kind of just like trying to get their groove back, get their identity, get their confidence back. And obviously they won against us the other day, and maybe that was kind of like the turning point for them. They needed like a really tough Game 5 series, like clutch win, to kind of feel like, hey, we are champions, we can do this.
I mean, they barely scraped through that series against you guys.
I was gonna say, compared to your expectations, when you were playing them in game, like, were you surprised at all at their performance? Or like, how did it feel going up against EG from like an in-game perspective?
Well, I mean, it kind of felt like the same against all the top teams where I felt like we knew what we were as a team, so we were going to play our game. And, you know, I thought they had strong games in early games where they would blow us out, but we also were able to like take the team fights, and I think we could beat anyone in team fights for the team that we had. So I didn't think that they were like too far ahead of us or anything. And I thought that they just played really clutch. I mean, I think JoJo Game 5, this big moment, like getting the Swain play and coming back, I think that they kind of played like champions. I mean, you expect them to have some kind of resolve.
Absolutely, and I hope that just from that last series, being able to take a win like that, that they find, you know, more confidence based off that. Simply just because teams like, you mentioned Cloud9 2020, once you start taking losses as a dominant team in your region, you start to really, really overanalyze those losses and then take that to heart and over-criticize. Like, I always feel like that's going to be a situation for teams and take wrong conclusions. I don't want that from Evil Genius.
All right, well, you talk about whether or not the team will come away with any amount of confidence after taking that series. I wonder if any of you have that same kind of confidence after watching them take that series. Let's get the predictions up on the screen. Let's see where everybody is going today.
Ooh.
Solo's jumping on the EG side. Myself, Emily, Raz, and Mark all taking TL, with Mark being the only one who thinks it's going the full 5.
Well, I mean, Azael also on there 3-2.
Oh, sorry, I meant of
I'm sorry. I was just speaking out loud. Yeah, I mean,
that's how speaking works.
Yeah. Sometimes I speak to myself. You wouldn't know. I think this is such a hard series to predict because both teams are coming off difficult series, full 5-game series. You know, Sol was just talking about how they could have had that. I was casting that game. I started that like ramp up that you sort of do as a caster when you think the game is over, and like I was like, Solo came back and turned around this TSM.
You're telling me you cursed us. You're the reason.
So hard, dude.
Wow.
I'm sorry. But yeah, like that's how close that series was. Was that like, I was already gearing up to say that like TSM had done it a little bit after you guys got that Baron, and so like that just speaks to how much these teams have been tested recently. TL also had a 5-game series, and that's what makes this one so hard to predict.
And I definitely think that with how varying those predictions are, a lot of it can be starting from like faith-based arguments, where both these teams had really rough points in their playoffs, especially in their last series, and there's a level of expectation that they will get it together for the people. And people will see like aspects of Team Liquid and aspects of EG and say, how can they not with how well they performed during the regular season?
Emily, if somebody had prophesized to me that only 5 people out of 16 would predict EG in this matchup prior to watching the playoffs play out, I would have said it's insanity.
It's insanity. Crazy, right? Especially given how well they did in the regular season. Like they were such a good 5v5 team fighting team. And I know we've pointed it out through like their drafting, especially, but it does seem like they've switched up their play style a little bit going into, at the very least, the lower bracket portion here, right? And I don't know if that's necessarily the JoJo.
Oh, sorry, buddy.
Sorry, we relive this. But in a lot of these drafts, it was a lot more about, you know, the Sejuani, the 2 solo laners, and support from the bot lane, as opposed to a more hyper carry style that I think we expected not only from their regular season performance, but also just in generally how important bot lane is right now in the metagame.
Yeah, it does feel like they've pulled back from spoon-feeding Danny. The players themselves talk about how they always had this bomb in their back pocket of Danny in the late game should they not just stomp early. And with the Seraphine picks, with just how they're approaching the game, they have not been putting as much resources into them. You can see gold percent and CS percent dropping dramatically in the playoffs, especially against TSM. And, you know, damage percent has stayed roughly the same. So, like, it's not like Danny's just inting and playing bad, and that's why he's not getting gold.
Right.
You still see the damages there, but they just haven't feel like he's the backup that they want to play around.
Well, and also he's dealing damage in a different way, right? With things like the Seraphine. That's a lot different than a Sivir, you know, or a Jinx just, you know, auto-attacking you to death.
Yeah, and I just flatly didn't like those comps, specifically the one where it's like quadruple bruiser and the Seraphine, where they were actually losing team fights.
Yeah, I didn't like either. Yeah, I wasn't a big fan.
And so I don't understand it. And like looking through their priorities in draft, it is very clear that they want to, if they get the opportunity to go to Seraphine if possible, and then give away Sivir or Zeri and try and counter. And so like I'm interested in what other teams, taking notes for how C9 and TSM drafted will approach it, especially if they're Danny himself will go towards the Senna. I don't expect actually Senna to go through.
I love you bringing up other teams, right? Because if we've identified these kinds of shifts in styles, you know, for EG, the question is, have other teams? And lucky for us, Travis Gafford had an opportunity to talk to Bjergsen ahead of their matchup this week.
I'm not really as scared of EG as I think they were showing in spring. I mean, I wasn't very scared going into the mid-spring either, but I think they really showed everyone up, and they came in super strong in that final week, slamming everyone 3-0. But I feel like JoJo was really exceptionally strong in spring, especially in his laning phase, whereas I haven't really felt that pressure for him in summer. I feel like Abadage is a more standout player now than JoJo is to me. Maybe not in the laning phase, but Abadage performs really consistently out of the lane. And I think a big strength in spring was just like JoJo inspired and Vulcan carrying the early game, and then Danny being an exceptional team fighter. I think Danny's still a good team fighter, but he's been kind of exposed in terms of draft and champion pool lately. So we'll see. I think our prep against him is going to be very important.
I love the words out of Bjergsen. They're kind of saying what a lot of people are feeling as well, so it does give some insight into potentially how they want to attack this series. It's maybe a bit of a blueprint laid out by C9, by TSM, about how you can push this team.
Now, by the same token, TL is not without fault. So let's talk about how they've looked in the postseason in particular. What we've done here, essentially, Raz, is we've isolated game one of each of their series as compared to the rest.
Yeah, and in that same interview, by the way, Bjergsen talked about how every series that they had, they started really poorly, and it's not even like a consistent thing. There's different individuals that had just a really off game, and he's talking about specifically in their next series, just today, how that needs to change and they need to come in with the motors rolling.
And we heard Santorin say it as well behind the scenes too when he was talking in Pro to Pro with High, where he was like, I felt like in the first 2 games in their last series, he was like, I thought we were playing badly, and as long as we could fix that, it wasn't necessarily that we were getting outplayed by our opponents, right? And this is actually ties into why I chose TL to win this series, because in your match against EG, so like I hate to keep bringing this up, but I thought you guys had that game 5, right? Like it didn't feel the same as TL, where it felt like TL kind of course corrected mid-series. That series was very back and forth the entire way through.
Yeah, I think I am wondering if TL is going to be able to fix the early start. It does seem like a lot of their Game 1 woes is just some of the most int plays I've seen from them in LCS. Just off of like the top dive in the CLG series. Just
Yeah,
complete
that was rough.
losing their minds. But at the same time, sometimes you need like a one game to everyone get the nerves out.
Yeah.
Which is weird for a veteran
Which is weird for
roster.
that roster.
Yeah, but apparently they need one game to just like, everyone do the dumbest thing they've ever done, and then they can reel it in.
We'll be clean from there.
And then they can reel it in and be like, wow, guys, that was a
It's
little
only up
something.
from here.
Yeah,
right?
it can only get better.
I mean, it speaks to the expectations that we had when we laid out their thing. It's like that team does have a lot of pressure on them. So maybe having that int moment. Santorin himself said that like even losing in that way sometimes instills confidence because it's like the enemy team didn't do anything that clever. Like
That's true.
They didn't
Exactly.
they didn't body us. We just ran it under the turret, you know. And then you can kind of recover from there.
It is true. It is also interesting to me, though, like things. It does feel like they also slow things down after that first game, right? Like maybe it is they're just because there are no points on the board yet, they're willing to take a little bit more risk, push the pace, and hey, if we can get a really dominant game one, great. If we go down, oh well, we just ditch that strategy and kind of revert back to, as it seems, as you mentioned, Solo, like moving away from Bwipo's picks and now indexing more towards Hansama, as most of the league is, and just saying, hey, let's play for late.
Yeah, and I think for specifically Evil Geniuses, this goes back to the predictions. For Evil Geniuses, like, they haven't really found a solution. I think they're probably going to still stick to what their priorities are. Meanwhile, Team Liquid in that series, we were talking about game one to the rest of the games, they found the conclusion really in their CLG series. That, hey, if they with the matchups that they were getting, if they weren't on Zeri, hey, just put Hansama on Jinx and play towards bot lane consistently. And it was working well for them, and they looked like a dominant team when they were facing CLG in their final 3 games. And so I really enjoyed that conclusion and the drafts that Team Liquid were actually having at that one. And I thought their drafts, even in the FlyQuest series, were great. It's more so Evil Geniuses right now that have to have that hard conversation after the series that they have.
I'm very curious to see how draft plays out, if only because the majority of series have seen teams leaning towards that handshake trade of the Zeri or the Sivir, but EG more recently shown us, fine, we'll play Senna. You know, we'll play the Seraphine. We might not get as many of those just straight up handshake matches in the bot lane this time around.
Yeah, I'm really curious. A couple of things for draft. One, I feel like Trundle is going to be such a big priority for both teams because it seemed like Inspired started playing a lot of Trundle and picking it up, and it seems like one of his go-tos. And then as well, I do think that Danny's pool kind of got exposed for AD carry, for his AD role. I wonder if they'll just ban Seraphine, ban Zeri, maybe even ban Sivir, and just be like, hey, our bot lane is going to have a bigger pool. We'll be able to play like MF. We'll be able to play Draven. Because everyone knows they're going to ban Kalista on EG side every game. So I wonder if we're going to have like a 580 carry ban, pick ban into playing like Jinx priority or something, or people fighting over Senna. It'll be really interesting to see how much they focus on that.
And we were talking in the back room before this about how in regular season, teams are kind of drafting generally, like you just kind of have the same red side bans against every team because you're not prepping for a best of 5, you're playing 2 teams a weekend. So here, you know, you can target a weakness that you see and really send a lot of resources. So maybe that's why EG looked a little bit more dominant in the regular season. People were not really testing these potential champion pool weaknesses because they're just banning out the same 3 things on red side. Oh, let's get rid of Azir, you know, Zeri and something else, Kalista or whatever.
Exactly. And one thing that's going to be pretty clear throughout this series is just more so like just a level of team fighting. When you talk to the Team Liquid players, the 100 Thieves players, pretty much anybody, they'll talk about the major strength for Evil Geniuses being their team fighting. The setup for objectives, and then how they execute the fights as players. Whereas that's been a major weaknesses for them in their TSM series, but certainly in their Cloud9 series, where a lot of the times their Rift Herald fights, they'll go in there with the without number advantage, and then we'll just mis-execute in one way or another because they're still hungry for the fight. They need to be able to reel it in those moments and then take losses and give up like objectives if they're just not ready for it. That's something that's going to be super important for a team that's smart as Team Liquid.
It's do or die time. A ticket to Chicago and to Worlds is on the line here today for both of our squads. 1 best of 5 separates them from that or a season being over. Let's head out to the arena for game 1. It's Team Liquid versus our defending champions in Evil Geniuses.
Welcome, everybody, to the last set of games before we go to Chicago. I'm Captain Flowers, this is Kobe, that is Azael, and this gets to determine the last team that not only goes to Worlds, but that gets to play for the LCS Championship. Thank you, crowd. I'm ready for this. I think this is going to be a great best of 5.
It's an incredibly important day, but for a reason that not everyone might know, today is actually
Wait, what the?
Captain Flowers' birthday!
Happy birthday!
What the hell?
We got you some
How long
stuff
did
here.
you guys have
We got
this?
you a sash.
Oh, cool.
We got you a
Party
crown.
time, huh?
And we got some party bombers.
Oh, look at that! That's awesome!
That was a lot more confetti than I was expecting. I'm
Oh
gonna
my
be
God.
honest, the computer is covered.
This is
But
incredible. I don't know how I'm going to cast the team fights, but they're going to look spectacular.
That is not going to come off easily. That's a lot of glitter.
all right.
Okay, we're in
It's
there.
game
We're
one.
having a
Let's
good
go.
time. All right, let's rock and roll. Okay, so for those of y'all that may not know the stakes, this is it. Whichever team wins here, they get to go to Chicago. They get to go to Worlds. They get to play more League of Legends in 2022. The other side, not so much. Are you guys trying to scoop up the glitter as like a snow cone with the hats?
This is a tip. Don't get glitter on your mouse pad.
Yeah, it's a little bit tricky there, but let's go ahead and look at what's going on in the draft.
Yep.
We've got Kalista and Sivir and Zeri all banned away. Zillion, Seraphine, and the Aatrox also taken off the table. EG will be fast to lock in the Azir as the first pick of this series.
Yeah, this is going to be a really interesting one to see what the evolution of the meta is. We saw so much Seraphine coming out from EG yesterday. Obviously, it's banned out by TL this time around. What are they going to go towards here with Sivir and Zeri both banned out? Will it be back to kind of tried and true here? Will it be back to something like the Jinx for Danny? Really interested to find out, but it is going to be the first pick there on TL's side of Santorin's Trundle.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what Solo just mentioned on the analyst desk. So both of these junglers tending towards the Trundle. I mean, it has also just been really good worldwide in the meta. You know, shredding the front lines. Very easy jungler to go for objectives for with the team as well, and keep that structure to your team fight.
Alrighty, EG, what do they want to
Ooh.
bounce back with here as the Jinx is locked in second for TL?
It's that last Danny comfort pick. They're literally trying to take everything from him.
Yeah.
I mean, even Inspired was talking about in his interview and the possible champion pool issues that might surface. So Team Liquid here going for the throat in game number 1, double banning Danny and then taking away the Jinx as well.
Absolutely, and Bjergsen also had an interview, I believe, with Travis Gafford, where he was talking about how he felt, EG is not as scary this split as last because JoJo isn't as lane dominant, he feels, and Danny has been exposed in some of the champion pool issues. So really trying to target him, but Senna is absolutely still comfort for Danny. He has looked really, really good on it. So Senna TK bot lane for them, Azir in the mid lane. It's really looking like a lot of scaling on both sides, and honestly, a lot of comfort.
And a lot of range, too. That's one of the things that ended up being a big point of conversation during the EG TSM series was the team that had the better range, the team that was able to keep the other one away from them more easily. Yeah, I think there's glitter in my energy drink.
Happy birthday!
Yeah! We got Lulu in there, too, by the way. So Lulu Jinx, we got some hyper carry potential here for the bottom lane of Team Liquid.
Absolutely, and we've seen people go to the Jinx more commonly now. We even saw, Janna Jinx used as an answer to Zeri, so it is coming back into the meta in LCS at least a little bit here. Wukong, high prio jungle, going to be taken away from Inspired. We'll be interested to see if they're fine leaving up the Poppy. Trundle obviously is a good answer to the Poppy, but the Poppy still has incredible playmaking and can be really, really strong. So, not sure if TL are going to want to ban it out or not. I think they would be fine to leave it up, given that they haven't drafted any dashes and they have the Trundle. What do you think, Kobe?
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of the jungle 4 pick right now.
Yeah.
Is moving down the tier list there. I would say Inspired has been very, very versatile in the amount of jungle champions that he can bring out. So we shall see, though.
Wukong, Swain off the table, Lee Sin banned out there. So not the Poppy, but they are definitely zeroing in on that jungle pool a little bit further. Remember back in the first half of the ban phase, there wasn't really any attention paid to that. Much more attention paid towards the mid lane, towards the top lane, and specifically towards marksman. So what's this last ban going to be for EG? Is it going to be another possible mid laner that could go up against the Azir? No, it'll be the Ornn instead. EG still freshly emblazoned upon their mind is the Ornn they had to deal with from TSM.
Well, I think the Ornn makes a lot of sense, right? It's a really strong blind. It fits well with the theme of TL's comp here so far, so I do think it's a pretty intelligent ban. And also the Swain ban makes me feel like EG are going to draft some dive for their last couple picks, so I'm going to be interested to see where they take us.
I see Team Liquid do need some hard engage on their team, though. That's one thing you miss out when you have Trundle. You know, he is a great frontline, can shred your opponent's frontline, but can't get the engage for you. So
how about Gragas?
That's why the Gragas pick here follows up that Ornn ban. Really do like the Gragas pick here. Bwipo, when he first joined Team Liquid, some of the biggest games that he had were playing that top lane Gragas. Meanwhile, on EG's side, yeah, they don't actually receive a Poppy ban, and so it is available, but he's gonna go for the Jarvan anyways versus Jinx. These immobile AD carries, it's like, you know, Sivir and Jinx, these types of ones that don't have dashes, Jarvan is very, very good against here. You put him in the Cataclysm, it makes it very easy for like Senna and Azir to hit them with skill shots.
Exactly, and it also fixes their issue of having no hard engage here, right? And it's going to be Impact on the GP. You know, Bwipo obviously very well known for his Gangplank, but Impact as well. This was such a common pick for him for so many years. So I do really like the rounded out draft here for EG. Very high damage from the solo laners. You brought the engage in from the jungle. Bot lane is more of kind of that supportive style here. This would be exciting if we're going to get to actually see Bjergsen on the Yone as an answer to the Azir. It's something that Palafox has liked a lot. We have been seeing mixed in more. Akali, another answer. This is
Speaking of
definitely Bjergsen's
Palafox,
wheelhouse.
okay, the shout out here, but Bjergsen, let me take you back to TSM in the lower bracket, because Akali is the champion that he actually 1v9'd with to get TSM to the LCS finals and win it from the lower bracket. Now on Team Liquid, trying to do the same here.
Sewing up some of that energy, the blast from the past.
This was in the top 10 caster calls that Pastry actually put out. Was that play, and you were casting it.
Yeah. So maybe we'll get the run back. Maybe he'll do it again. Maybe he'll find that
same spot, same play
in the bottom lane between the two turrets, flanking the team fight. That's what TL would love to see.
This is going to be a really, really exciting one. You know, there are elements of late game, of scaling on both sides, but there's also a lot of playmaking here, some more aggressive picks mixed in as well. So I'm so interested to see how this first game is going to go. It'll really set the tone for the drafts going forward in this series.
You know what else? There's a lot of glitter.
Confetti.
There's glitter in my drink. There's glitter in my water. There's glitter all over the stage.
We got it everywhere. We're ready to celebrate because this is the series that we've all been waiting for. EG and TL, one spot left in Chicago. Let's do it. All right, my friends, let's rock and roll. They've made their way onto the Rift. Looks like we're just going to draw that line of scrimmage here at the very start. CoreJJ back in the base. I believe that might be a trinket swap, perhaps. No, nobody's looking to get too spicy here early on. Normally the game ones are where I look to see if somebody has any special plans concocted.
There's just so much that rides on this series for both of these teams. So much work has gone in to this entire years for both these teams.
Yeah.
You know, Evil Geniuses going to MSI, so much pressure on their shoulders as well. A lot has been talked about Team Liquid and the amount that's been spent on this roster and what they can do trying to get to Worlds, but Evil Geniuses as well. So much effort put into this year, into this roster, and growing over the year, all culminating in this series. One of these two teams will have so much left to play for.
Absolutely. It's just an incredible amount of pressure, you know, on the organizations, on the individual players. Your entire year coming down to this, and both teams obviously wanting to accomplish so much more than a top 4 finish here in Summer Split.
I mean, it's hard to believe that one of them does have to miss it, because when you were looking at the beginning of the year all the way back in spring, everybody looked at the TL super team. They're like, oh yeah, they're going to Worlds, no doubt about it. That's the squad right there. Then EG pops off in spring. Oh yeah, the new heroes, they're going to Worlds. You know that, no doubt about it. And now it's one or the other. And that's just not a timeline I think a lot of people were expecting, but here we are.
Absolutely, and we've seen some miraculous improvements from some of the teams that are waiting up on the top. Cloud9 obviously already in the grand finals has really improved hugely. EG improved so much, I think, after MSI. You compare their summer split to their spring, but here they are, one series to decide their fate this year.
And as far as what to expect from these lanes, a lot of trading happening up on top side, getting pretty low up there. Bwipo down to 200 HP on the Gragas, trying to get the most out of his healing passive and chugging those potions. Meanwhile, the mid lane should be constant pressure for EG, pushing Azir into Akali pre-6. Santorin coming bottom, but over the ward, so.
And it is actually a bit of a concern for Bwipo because he did start Doran's Ring and he's already used both his potions and is getting chunked there pretty low. So it's kind of a battle between Impact's mana pool and Bwipo's health pool right now. We'll see who's going to come out on top there, but for now, it is that push gained by TL's bot lane. That 2v2 I do think is going to go their way in the early levels. They will have the push here pretty heavily. And I'll be interested to see what we can actually get from that, on the side of Santorin. What can he do with this pressure as Inspired looking to meet him in his own jungle?
Yep, Santorin will finish picking up the blue buff here. Trundle's a much better duelist than Jarvan is. So unless Inspired is able to bring help over here, there's no way he outfights Santorin for this.
Yeah, that answers your question right there immediately, Azael. What can you do with it? You can get your bottom scuttle crab because you see Jinx hovering up there from the bottom lane, be able to get a Bwipo flash. Doesn't have enough damage for the calculation there, but...
And now he's Zoom. So Impact is just going to stay around. He's not even going to actually leave. And they know Inspired is up on that top side because he got pushed off the bot side scuttle. So Bwipo has to just completely leave. The wave is in an awkward spot, but Impact's too low to freeze this, so it's not like he can stand up and actually tank that wave, but it does mean Impact is going to get a good base.
And still, though, it does mean Santorin is pretty far ahead on this Trundle over Inspired, because Inspired went down to cover that bottom lane attempt at a gank, with the vision over him. So Santorin has the extra camp clear, hovering bottom once again. He's now looking for the Jarvan ganking. This is a cover move here. They're moving in on the minion wave. They still have all summoners here for EG, though.
Yeah.
Kind of dangerous.
They're going to go for it.
Yeah, TL wants to take it. Let's see what they can find. Polymorph down onto Danny. Focus will be over onto him, and it's first blood Santorin. TL, they get in, they get out, and they get paid.
Really well played, just kind of pushing him off the tower there with the chompers. Santorin gets raided on top of him. Danny tries to flash back towards that tower, but right onto the chompers, goes down in a hurry. That is huge. Just look at the farm difference actually between Vulcan and Hansama. That's what you're comparing right now. It is a monster lead for the TL bot side, and you got TP off of mid lane.
Yeah, it was a really nice job using this juggling of the tower aggro. They used the range champions to acquire tower aggro first. CoreJJ takes the first 2 turret shots. He flashes out with the Senna root on him. Then Hansama picks it up. He takes another turret shot. He jumps out with the Jinx passive, get excited. So nicely used there with minimal cooldowns from Team Liquid to pull off that actual tower dive.
And you look at the buy now, it's just going to get worse on that bottom side. Hans has a much better buy here with the Noon Quiver already completed. It's just boots for Danny. It's boots and a Ruby there for Vulcan, so not much to write home about.
And it's been so big, Team Liquid, since they found this Jinx pick in their series versus CLG and used it so effectively there. It has really become a mainstay. Hansama's Jinx, so many stats were laid out in that previous series, and he only improved upon them. Santorin, though, is heading towards the top side. It's a counter gank from Inspired. Jarvan EQ.
Okay.
He's trying to make him use the body slam.
He's trying to bait him.
That's all they're looking for. Inspired goes in, but Santorin flashes past it. Impact going the other way. He gets level 6. Bwipo's taken low, but it's Impact taken out. Now a 1v1 between the junglers, but Santorin's got to back off.
Oh, the scrap in the top side. He was trying to bait him closer to the jungle that had Inspired with him, but Bwipo was not taking that bait. Bwipo did not get too close, so then Inspired had the EQ towards Trundle, who has the full health, and Santorin just flashes it there, ends up just in the 1-for-1.
Yeah, really well played by TL. They clearly had the read that Inspired was in the brush, and that's why Bwipo was just not biting on it, refuses to use his body slam. And it just felt like EG waited too long there. Inspired, by the time he comes out of the brush, Impact is pretty much dead. You watch the start of this play, Impact's trying to push the wave, trying to say, hey, Body slam over here, come for that kill. Then Inspired's going to go in for the counter gank, trying to push out that wave to actually get 6 here. But look how low he is by the time he goes in. Santorin just flashes over the top, and they're able to finish off that kill. Impact flashing forward, good eyes on his experience to get 6.
Exactly. He flashes forward to kill the minion to get level 6. Instantly levels his ulti up, but still just a 1-for-1. And that actually is better for Team Liquid, knowing that there's now no Gangplank ultimate to be used on the bottom side to try and turn around this Jinx lane, because the Jinx Lulu has been punishing and dominating.
Yeah, the Gangplank can be so warping around these bottom side fights, right? Especially if we see either team want to turn their heads towards some early Drake prioritization. We remember back in the series of EG versus TSM, that was a pretty big element of what they were trying to do, stacking up there. But without the Gangplank ulti, that becomes a much more fair fight. Down there, 62-42, the Jinx versus Tahm Kench farm count. Back in mid, which hasn't really been a whole lot of action so far this game, that one's a quiet lead here for JoJo as well, up about 2 waves.
Yeah, kind of expected here for Azir to keep pushing the Akali in, but post level 6, you are starting to look for when can Bjergsen move for some kill threat here, maybe with jungle gank, maybe moving to side lane. JoJo constantly just pushing in over and over though. With that Lost Chapter mana, he is fine.
But look at this, EG, Inspired is trying to start the Herald right on spawn, but TL's bot lane is already up there, and EG's bot lane is actually way behind the play. You can see them coming out of base just now, but the Jinx and Lulu are already up on top side, so they're the ones with first move there. Bwipo now heading down towards bottom side. EG do have 5 in the area, so will he actually stay around and try to contest this?
Yeah, it looks like they're keeping Impact up here for now. Recall started for JoJo on a ward. Team Liquid know that JoJo is not here, and he already used his teleport.
Yeah, so it would be a 4v4. Bwipo cannot answer either unless he's going to roam up. But it is JoJo moving out towards mid, so yeah, I think TL are just going to give this up very likely because they would be in a 4v5 if they engage, but they're at least trying to hang around potentially to steal.
Santorin wants to step
He
up.
yoinked it!
He steals it away. He just walked up and pressed smite.
Such a good pillar follow-up, too. It actually causes Vulcan to have to use the Tahm Kench ultimate. Nice interrupt there on Inspired. Santorin, the Troll King. This is jungle dominance. This is what it looks like. You smite, you win the smite wars, and then you also win the extra cooldowns by interrupting them.
Absolutely, and it's at least 1 plate gone on bot side at the same time because everyone from EG is up here. They do actually hit the eye pretty early, so no more eyeball spawns. We can't actually combo it with that. EG are just focused on actually finishing that down, but the Jinx all hits, knocks it to 400, and Santorin is just able to nail the smite there. Really good combo coming in from TL.
Yeah, and then the Trundle ultimate, or the Trundle pillar at the end too to get Vulcan's ultimate. My goodness, Team Liquid are picking up right where they left off.
It is a nice early game for TL. Everything going pretty according to plan for them. 1,500 gold up. They've got that Rift Herald now. We'll see where they want to use that. If they want to just try to get one of these turrets immediately forced down, maybe use it as a distraction for Drake.
Now, Flowers, as a fellow jungler, I know that starts to weigh on your head. When you start to miss a lot of smites, and this has been trailing Inspired.
Oh, yeah.
It starts to become part of the mental game. You get in your own head as far as trying to hit these ones at the right timing. And you can say, yeah, it was a Team Liquid Jinx rocket, but that visual is on screen for everybody, and it's on you to press it when you see the rocket hit. We'll see if it actually ends up mattering around a lot of these objectives, because Team Liquid will just continue to pick up the neutral objectives.
Yeah, they're feeling really, really good about their pace in this game. Had vision control on the bottom side. They're able to take both a plate bot and take that top Herald. It's actually 3 plates down off the bot lane tower, so I'm not sure how much of that gold went into the pockets of Bwipo. We didn't actually get that all on camera, but at least a plate or 2 went his way. And you can see even with the GP passive and GP being up gold, they're tied, right? Or out farm, I should say. So definitely a lot of plate gold going the way of Bwipo.
Very, very concerning things here for EG early on in this game. Let's see if they can get anything going to strike back a little bit. They had the even trade up in top, but that's really been the brightest point for them.
Yeah, I say EG. Oh, well, and Santorin's going to walk down here into another possible counter gank, though. Inspired does walk away from the sweeper. I don't believe they got any tick of him.
Both junglers are still just hanging around. Danny and Vulcan step up. Okay, Santorin is still there. He steps out, frozen domain. Danny and Vulcan unafraid, Inspired, unmoving. He is standing there like a gargoyle. And okay, finally, the ward placed into the brush. They see he's there, they back up.
Yeah, and it's just going to be the push in here with the Herald
Tower's
drop.
gone.
So trying to get even more gold in this Jinx pocket. Yeah, they're not going to be able to stop this charge.
I like
no
it.
shot.
Killer's gonna zone him away, make sure they can't try to stop anything here. There comes the charge. It's already below 2 blades. Kaboom! First turret, Team Liquid.
And that's just brute force. That is staying stubborn with it. Here comes the Azir, though, down river.
Okay, let's see if they can make anything happen with it. Fight breaks out, Santorin has to flash away.
The Azir coming river, though?
Team Liquid falls back. JoJo's not there in time to make anything happen, so Team Liquid gets out. 2,500 gold lead.
Yeah, with just the flash of Santorin burn to get out of that cataclysm. EG, another attempted defense here, but Team Liquid just wearing them down in this siege, and there's nothing you can do in the face of a Rift Herald popped right in front of you.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just looking really, really good for TL. One thing, though, working for EG is they do have that GP ulti back. It is Spellbook Ignite now. There's no flash on Trundle, so maybe you can find him. You can try to look for some sort of a play around that. Zen ulti is available. GP ulti is available, so there are potentials for them to try to find some sort of a pick. And JoJo grabbing that first plate down in mid lane, he is farming very well, so will be the hope for the team.
Exactly. JoJo is the point of power here. You got the early Leandries completed on the Azir. Definitely is a champion you can control these team fights with. You can bring them back. A 1.6k gold deficit. You can definitely fight your way back out of it. As long as your team members have gotten to their mythics, that's really the big breakpoint for the first big team fight here.
I mean, we talk about this somewhat frequently, I'd say, is it's not about the gold as much as it's about completed items, right?
Yeah.
If you can meet them at the same total number of completed items, you've still got a good shot at the fight.
Absolutely. And EG for now, looking all right. GP obviously already on the early Triforce. Bwipo going to be slower on the completion because he went, tier 2 boots, got the tier, got the extra laning items. But, EG does have their opportunities.
I will say, too, it's pretty interesting. Inspired running the Spellbook on Jarvan. It also gave him access to Futures Market. And so he was able to get his Chem Tank really early, going into the negatives on borrowing a little bit of money there. So, again, even though EG are facing a gold deficit overall as a team, they have been able to hit the items at least.
Impact invading towards the red buff of Team Liquid here. As soon as Santorin sees that barrel show up, he immediately smites his red, recognizes EG is making some sort of a move towards it, and then regroups up in the top lane with his AD carry and support. Bjergsen just going to continue getting shoved in here in mid. The story of Azir versus Akali. She's just got to answer these things, then look to make some plays later on.
So there's another chapter in that story, and though
Okay.
it's when the Akali starts to look for these assassination plays, and he's almost level 11 now, and we still have not seen an attempt here with the assassination. Bottom side, though, Bwipo is getting the better of the Krugs.
It does appear so. Barrel's gonna pop a couple more of them, but then another barrel goes back the other way. The battle of the barrels between these top laners as Bwipo is nearly out of mana, so he just has to scoot back over the wall. CoreJJ and Hans Sama gonna look for Vulcan here. Chompers don't arm in time, so Vulcan gets away. But still a really big economic lead for Hans Sama.
Absolutely, and it's the move towards the second Herald. Right on spawn, TLR here again, looking to challenge for this. There is no TP on Impact. He does have his ulti. He's walking up, but I think it's going to be too little too late, so he's just heading back down towards bot side, and if they want to contest, it's only going to be with that extra ultimate. They're not going to have their entire team there, so this should be TLs, but EG are poking around, seeing if they can find something.
They get the flash out of CoreJJ at least, but Santorin is there with the Chomp plus Smite secured. They get that objective. EG will not be able to steal one back.
My question is, how quick can they reset here? Because the Dragon's coming up in only 12 seconds. If you reset, move your vision back to the other side of the map, they can continue stacking these Dragons. Teleport used by Bwipo to get there in time and set up for it. Make sure that evil geniuses can't rotate. Bjergsen has the Unleashed Teleport, so you just need to reset, move back down towards Dragon, have Bwipo push out bottom and play for it.
And it does mean that Impact's going to be on a pretty late reset if he actually does elect to go back to base here. He does have about 900 gold in pocket, so not a monstrous buy, but still something you would want to be able to spend up. Bwipo, though, trading heavily here with Impact. He is on his Night Harvester now, so has the Mythic completed, and will have a tremendous amount of burst if he can find jojopyun or Danny.
There it is, the Bjergsen teleport to get back out there for the Dragon fight. 6,000 health, though. It's dropping pretty quickly.
Yeah, EG's got 4 players here in the pit. They've already got it down to 3k HP.
They're gonna play for the
Bjergsen's
fight.
gonna walk up. Bwipo's gonna walk up. They go in. Vulcan's the target here at the start. Bwipo trying to get away. Flash to reposition. Bwipo very low, somehow barely walking out, but JoJo's got him. EG gets the objective and a kill to boot. Now Inspired's
flash
gonna
on
go
Core.
in. Look for Core even more. Goodbye, good night. EG win that one.
Oh, they were starting to sweat a little bit, but Evil Geniuses bring it back around the dragon fight. They reset quicker, they get there quicker, they burn down the dragon and turn for the kill.
There's been such an incredible focus on objectives in this game. Every herald, people are there on spawn, ready to scrap this dragon. It's only the second of the game, but both teams really putting a priority on it, knowing it's going to be a main way to actually push the pace of the game forward here. Now, Santorin down on bot side. Impact does have his flash, but I don't think you're getting out of this.
He's not going anywhere but the spawn platform, and he got a one-way ticket on Han's airline.
TL, get one back. That one, gold in the pocket of Hans. Already has his mythic completed, well on his way to what is likely a second item PD here. Hans is going to be a problem for EG.
Rocket misses, flying up there towards that top lane. But the push continues in the bottom side as Hans is just left down here to farm up the wave. Santorin and CoreJJ hanging out nearby, but stealing away jungle resources.
One of those biggest things to track here is going to be Han Sama's flash. That flash is the most important flash in this whole game because there is a Jarvan and Gangplank on the opponent team. That is some of the hardest ultimates for a Jinx to play against. Because of the Cataclysm Gangplank synergy there, that is going to be #1 thing for Team Liquid on their minds playing through this one. They do have a 2,000 gold lead still off of picking off that extra kill and split the dragons, but it's going to be all about that protection.
Yeah, it's all about those initial engages, because you said it. I mean, if you hit him with the Jarvan ultimate, GP comes over top, Senna is there as well. You even can't actually dodge the Tahm Kench dive as well. So there's so many spells that can actually come out, which will spell very rough things for TL. But that being said, they do have some pretty good disengage. The Gragas ultimate can be used as a peeling tool. You do have the threat, obviously, of Akali trying to push those carries back. So it's going to come down to the execution here. I don't think that either team has a monstrous scaling advantage or anything like that.
Right, Gragas can disengage. You've got the pillar coming out from Trundle as well. Lulu's entire kit to protect Hans through whatever might be thrown at him. Team Liquid still does enjoy that 2,000 gold lead they've bought for themselves so far. But I'm curious when we're going to get our next fight, if it's just going to be 2.5 minutes from now at the Drake.
And I'm curious when we're going to see the first perfect execution from Bjergsen, this Akali. You know, when are we actually going to get the ultimate? When are we going to get him looking for a kill?
Well, we've got a kill on a mid lane turret. How's that?
No deal!
No deal?
I don't like it.
You want to see Akali dash, but Shelly's dash isn't good enough for you?
You can't use your perfect
Kind
execution.
of messed up there, Kobe. Shelly's trying her best.
I'm sorry, Shelly. Not good enough. Oh, Inspired is in and out.
Inspired jumps in there with the Cataclysm, jumps right back out. Impact's ulti brought down on the location. I don't think EG realized how much Team Liquid was there.
Yeah, after us talking up this Cataclysm Gangplank ultimate combo, I'm like, maybe not the best picture drawn right there on screen. But exactly like you say, you know, they don't have the deep vision to know.
And Trundle's just able to kind of ulti heal through it, right? It wasn't a full commit there. I think they've had some.
Yeah.
They thought they had someone really caught out, but as soon as you see the people behind him, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's just an instant cancel button, right?
Yeah.
I would be looking to just spam these Cataclysm ults on the Jinx, though, so that the first step is acquired, and the first step is blowing that flash. So we'll see if you can actually find him. Again, the vision setup is a really big issue here, because when you start to have these split pushers on both sides of you getting advantages and pushing in, I mean, Bjergsen's got a bounty on his head even without a kill. The Akali does put a lot of extra threat on these side lanes here.
Oh, there's a lot of TL up on that top side, and JoJo has no vision. They see him now.
Oh boy, JoJo, you better try to get out of there, buddy. Flashes over the chompers, flashes over the pillar, and stays safe.
Yeah, it's the flash, but it's also the TP, and TL didn't commit really anything to that besides a little bit of time, so a really nice look from TL. Vulcan thinks that they're going to go for the full command on the dive, so he's got an early TP, so he can be there in time to actually devour him and save his mid laner, but it doesn't amount to much, and now Danny, in a little bit of an awkward spot, will be pushed back.
You should be fine. Not really any way for TL to do a whole lot else here after going for that move towards JoJo. But now Azir without a flash, that's a much more vulnerable target.
Exactly, burning the flash is the first step. And I think that Team Liquid, they just don't have to give up. You just keep on pushing down these towers. Top tower will go down while Impact is trying to chase Bwipo.
Well, he's got some help heading his way here too. Inspired, pathing down, but there, oh, the flash from Impact to guarantee that Bwipo's not able to knock him back. Bjergsen and JoJo both show up to the fight now as well. And TL disengages it.
Yeah, they win that TP fight. Being able to get him out with 3 members still top is what they wanted.
Vulcan stepping up here, trying to keep these guys away. Wild growth on Santorin to make sure he's able to escape. CoreJJ wants to flash out now too. Impact coming in, barrel hits Santorin. Zap fired back. EG's bringing up the whole crew. They're ready to party, but they even have an invitation. Team Liquid continuing the retreat here. Nice disarm on the barrel. Inspired jumps in and he goes for CoreJJ. He knows the Lulu still has no flash. Can they get anything else? EG trying to get back. Bwipo goes in, but they're not going to find the kill. Vulcan's got the save. He's shot through the heart. Beautifully done, but can TL find anything back? They've already lost both bottom laners, and EG is sticking together. Bwipo gets shuffled back, and JoJo will seal his fate. Bjergsen tries to get something back anywhere, anyway, anyhow, but he can't do it. EG 3-0.
Yeah, EG take everything from them. That guess what? They got the Jinx flash and the Jinx kill too. Senna ultimate from Danny over the top, snipes him, and EG fight right back into it.
Man, these teleports back and forth across the map has been such an active game here with the map movements. Everyone teleporting back and forth. This one, though, EG showcasing their team fighting that has really made a name for this team. That is their specialty.
That's been their brand. That's been what everybody gets excited for, and showcasing it right there against TL. 2,000 gold lead doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about Hans. This is what they're here for.
And guess what? It's Dragon time, so we might be having another scrap. We'll see if TL wants to get out there and try to contest again. It's EG on the push through mid.
EG setting up the Sun Disc, or the Doom Disc, or whatever the ruined version of it is, to hide behind. Inspired, though, not in a good spot. Not where you want to be. CoreJJ gets the kill credit. Super Mega Death Rocket taking impact to death's door, but with the enemy jungler down. Team Liquid's happy to pick that one up.
Yeah, look at the timing on that. Team Liquid got the members advantage. They're going for Baron instead.
Ooh, EG. Back up as 4. Impact still low. He'll eat oranges as much as he can to try to heal up. Hans throws out the chompers. JoJo gets rooted. He has to be devoured by Vulcan. He'll be carried away to safety, but that is a very big defensive tool now down.
Yeah, Vulcan has been so on point with the Devour, so I love that he uses the early Devour as soon as Bjergsen is going in, preventing the damage from landing instead of using it last second when he's already low there. So this allows EG, with those health bars, to actually move over towards Dragon and try to potentially take this third Drake. Inspired is up, and he's running out there on the map. JoJo's looking.
Oh, JoJo, he only gets the blue buff with the shuffle, but Bwipo just gets stabbed by the soldiers. Easy pickup.
Well, now they're the ones with the numbers advantage. Guess what? No Gragas, no frontline. EG are like, this dragon all of a sudden has changed sides.
Hey, thanks, guys.
My, how the tables have turned.
Yes, the turntables, my friend. EG gonna grab themselves an objective, and now they're looking for something even more important. That's a no flash Hans Sama. And that's another kill. 4-0-2 for JoJo.
How much more can EG get on this? Are they willing to actually try to push up, try to take a tower? It looks like it's just going to be the reset because JoJo is very low. So it will just be the kills. But all of a sudden, EG have tied up the gold.
So much work being done by JoJo right now. This mid lane difference is ginormous. Azir putting out so much damage, going in for these big plays with the team. Let's take a look at what started it all on the top side of the map. And remember, this is where they get the Jinx flash as well, and so they get the follow-up play. Bwipo jumps in. There's a Vulcan Devour you're talking about.
Exactly, and there's that flash from Hans, but the Senna ulti over the top finds the angle. Look at him, snipes him down, knocks out Hans. And that's that play we're talking about. And then Bjergsen trying to go in, but just not quite able to finish anyone off. Danny utilizing the Shroud on the side to really poke and prod. And then as everyone is low here, Bjergsen sees an angle trying to get in, but it's Inspired he's able to connect that Shuriken flip onto. And Inspired is full tank. He flashes out. The perfect execution just doesn't have enough damage in the tank to finish anyone off there. Bjergsen just so close to turning that into a triple, but gets nothing.
And then JoJo, this killer instinct, he's had it since that final game versus TSM, you know, where he just hulked out. In here, in the blue quadrant jungle, he forces again. Even without hitting the sweep, he still turns around and stabs Bwipo with the soldiers to death and goes for another pick towards Hans Sama as well, getting EG so much control of the map back.
I mean, he's playing like a man possessed. You mentioned that final game, you know, in the last series, that Swain game, spell booking the smite, stealing the soul, chasing down the team, hitting so many key never moves on the Swain. He was the difference maker in that game. Yeah. And he's looking to be the difference maker here in game number 1. But it's Bwipo now in trouble again.
Oh, Bwipo. He gets jumped on by Inspired. He's stuck inside the Cataclysm.
coming.
Uses the ult to block as much damage as he can by knocking Impact away. Now TL is called in the cavalry. It's Hans. He fires off the rocket. Impact's low, but he ain't down yet. Hans still looking for it. Danny providing some covering fire. Impact wants to escape, but at this point he knows he's done.
Yeah, that was hilarious to watch as the JoJo goes for another one here. But you could see Bwipo, full tank Gragas in the Cataclysm with a spellbook full tank Jarvan. He's like, what damage? Like, what? Nice tickle.
Yeah, I mean, they thought he could burst him down because he is playing Night Harvester. He is, you know, on that AP build path. But even with that, the W damage reduction, Gragas obviously pretty tanky, has the self-peel with the ulti.
You see, full tank spellbook Jarvan will make anybody look like a tank.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, my friends, they end up losing their top laner on the side of EG. They still maintain that very, very slight gold lead. We got 2 minutes until our next Drake spawns. EG is establishing some vision control around the Baron pit. There are still a lot of Team Liquid wards around here, including the vision from the Scuttle Crab. And you're going to see Bjergsen and Bwipo down here on the opposite side of the map.
I will say a really terrifying breakpoint is approaching here, you know, for EG, as they are closing in on that death cap for JoJo. He has 2,200 gold in pocket right now, so just needs about 100 more gold for his full death cap completion, and that would be triple AP items there.
Oh boy, Impact. This might not be good. He's trying to buy time. He's trying to get his team here to stay. And he does it. Top, don't die. Not when it's Impact. Bwipo ends up eating that one, and EG gets the outplay.
No way! He even dodges away the Jinx rocket. My goodness. Impact lives. JoJo, can he do the same?
Oh, JoJo. He sidesteps away from the Shuriken flip, and that means he'll be fine. EG bringing in their own backup now as TL wants to try to get away. Inspired continuing to chase, but he's too far ahead of the rest of the team, so he cannot engage.
Man, these TPs, every single time a fight breaks out, it's the instant TP from both sides. You know, the triple TP feels like it's coming in clutch for EG throughout this. We gotta watch this one more time. So close on the kill here from Impact. The Q barrel does land, but Bjergsen comes in to follow up on this beautiful ulti. The instant TP is already there, though.
Yeah, and Impact over to a barrel. So he pops the barrel, he pops his ultimate, eats his oranges, and actually is able to kite it out, dodges back the sidestep here on the Jinx rocket coming straight for his face.
The Senna ulti making all the difference, right? Just barely not able to actually kill him off. The Senna ulti was that change. These global ultimates meaning a lot for EG.
And hey, we got 25 seconds till this next Drake spawns. Hans currently has the 3-item Jinx power spike with Infinity Edge, plus the stopwatch. This is everything he could want. His flash is up as well. Hans has everything in the tank ready to fire here for this fight. Team Liquid's gonna need to play around him.
And it feels like it's mid versus bot, because JoJo has his death cap, right? And he has gone this super heavy AP build. Shadow Flame, Leandry's death
Flank on
cap,
Gangplank.
all expensive items.
Impact, look at these barrel chains. Impact can set up from behind the dragon.
EG's just going over to the Baron. They're saying, you know what? Sure, take it. Have the Drake. We'll control the Baron pit instead. But now they're going to walk back over. It's just Bwipo doing the Drake.
They're going to look for a turn here with Inspired, potentially.
Okay, Team Liquid still just hanging around, just buying time for Bwipo to complete this. They're not looking for a 4v5. They're just looking to make sure that EG cannot sneak the
Hans
Baron.
went down to the Dragon too, so now they're going to start it up for sure.
Okay, Baron has begun. EG, they've got it down to half. Bjergsen had to jump back over the wall. Smoke screen's gonna be on a small cooldown.
Burn it, burn it, burn it!
Burning down the Baron. It is secured, beautifully traded. But can they get away safely? TL coming around from the flank, but they won't get there in time. That was masterfully navigated by EG.
Absolutely, there was no flash on Santorin, so we had no easy way into the pit, so they just had to have one member marking him. TL do get that dragon, but it's EG with a much bigger prize. They're now 3,000 gold ahead here. The items coming in for EG, making all the difference. JoJo is going to be such a problem in Impact. Maybe fancies himself him this 1v1.
Let's see. He's got the barrel. Okay, goes for it there, but not going to find anything.
I do want to shout out, that play was so different after the dragon changes. The dragon's health was increased by almost 40%, especially this late into the game, making it a lot longer for Bwipo or any person to solo a dragon. And EG say, great, you want to take your time soloing that dragon down there? They force on the Baron. They take advantage of those changes. It was significant here, and they get all the rewards.
And you do have to wonder, though, about the decision to make it Bwipo that solos it out, because AP Gragas is not going to kill that dragon fast. Should it not have been Gragas up there warding them off the Baron with Hans actually killing the dragon, he would have done it much faster and potentially been able to actually respond at least with the ultimate on an early play. You know, maybe even try to do some sort of a combo with Bwipo's burst plus Santorin's burst. But either way, it is EG now in the driver's seat here, game number 1. You know, TL has not had good starts to their series in playoffs, but they have scaled into them incredibly well.
Right.
In basically every series, they have really struggled out the gates.
Yeah. All right. It's really interesting to see, you know, the changes as well, since so many of these players are used to these late game objective trades just being a little bit quicker and having those changes in. Now Team Liquid, though, they've got Bjergsen level 16 on Akali. Still no kills yet. Teleport and Flash are available. If they're gonna make something happen, you gotta feel like they have to do it in the next minute here. EG pushing with this Baron, if they just close in and finish up the rest of these towers, it's gonna be hard for Team Liquid to defend.
It is, and I mean, you look at the farm diff in mid lane, it's about ADCS, and it's nearly 5,000 gold between Bjergsen and jojopyun. Jojo has all these kills, has gotten towers, has gotten a monster amount of farm, and he is just such a threat now. 4th completed item there. Bjergsen's still working on his 3rd. He's on 2.5 here. Jojo has to be the focus for TL. Any fight that doesn't begin with Jojo dying is going to be a bad fight for TL.
It's a mid diff here in game number 1. Like, straight up, no sugarcoating it. It is a mid diff with Jojo carrying all this weight, putting the team on his back. You know that he wants to go to Chicago. You know that he wants to be still in that competition for the title and going to Worlds, of course. But Danny's eating a lot of rockets. They're going to be careful about that one. Danny does not get hit directly by the Super Mega Death Rocket. Vulcan tanks that one. The AoE still has Danny down to 300 health. Impact takes down the tier 3 turret in mid lane. And now Inspired goes in on Bwipo. Then immediately goes right back out. Bwipo's flash now down.
Yeah, another flash burn for a Cataclysm. You'll trade those every day of the week. Even though it is Gragas, you know, that's actually a dangerous initiation tool. Impact slowly pushing on mid lane, finished up that turret with the remnants of the Baron buff, and EG don't have to stop there.
All right, EG. They're going to keep on going. They tried to scare Hans there, but it doesn't end up even needing to be done. Bwipo's already gone. Top laner down, 5v4 for 45 seconds. Bjergsen's on the flank, but EG are unafraid. Impact, marking him, tracking him, zoning him back away from anybody he might actually want to assassinate, and EG pick up 2 in his.
EG massively ahead off of that. They forced the flash up of Bwipo. Inspired, playing this out so well, going back and forth with his full tank Jarvan, trying to bait cooldowns out, trying to threaten and really poke and prod at TL here constantly, because the only real damage threat for him is Hans, and he already has the anathemas for Hans, so he's not really that concerned about what TL can do.
And Team Liquid, what can they do? It has to come from the only initiation tool they have is this Gragas.
Yeah.
And EG are focusing him. They keep on burning his cooldowns. If there's no flash on the Gragas, guess what? That initiation is way less scary. They keep going after Bwipo. They keep killing Bwipo, and they take away Team Liquid's ability to actually start the fight on their own terms.
EG has 10 kills and Bwipo has 6 deaths. They are absolutely saying, hey, you know what, AP Gragas, it's not that big of a deal. Just get him, get rid of him, stop the engage, and then we can make our own plays. As Team Liquid will retreat in time here in the mid lane, but the Drake's about to spawn. I don't think TL want anything to do with a fight in open ground.
Yeah, I mean, they have no vision. Look at this whole side of the map. 0 wards over there whatsoever for TL. And this is not Soul Point. You know, this would put them on Soul Point. So
Right.
I don't think we're going to see TL really look to contest this. It's not worth going for just that one Cloud Dragon here. But now Hans on the retreat. His flash is not forced.
Yeah, still has flash. He's got Pocket Lulu right next to him, so he's not in any real danger, but he will be forced to get as far away as possible from that Drake pit. They fired off the Super Mega Death Rocket, just hoping maybe there was that little 1% chance you steal it away randomly, but it doesn't happen. It's 3 Drakes. Soul Point now for Evil Geniuses. 6,000 gold up, and the next Baron spawns in 30 seconds.
What a battle this game has been. Team Liquid came out with a nice early lead for themselves, almost up to 2,000 gold, but EG, ever since that dragon fight, they have run the map, and now Team Liquid, only 1 inhibitor left to them, so it's really difficult. You have to constantly clear out both mid and bottom lanes. lines of super minions before you can even come over to this Baron. And EG, Danny now in trouble.
Oh, Danny flashes over the wall. Knew there was no other way out of that one. Vulcan trying to go for the abyssal dive, gets back out of danger range. Sama eating some damage from the Gangplank ulti. Impact fires that barrel forward, but not going to get meaningful damage onto any enemy champions with it. Evil Geniuses and TL both end up walking away from them.
Absolutely, but TL with the better health bars here, and they're going to try to use this to get vision around the Baron to try to control this river area. Will they stay around to try to look for any sort of a scrap? It does look like they are going to be pushed out here from JoJo, who has now officially Flame Horizon Bjergsen over 100 CS ahead here, 36 minutes in. The game is in his hands, and EG know it. They're going to start this one up. They see Bwipo bot, and Bwipo has no TP, so at best, it's a look for a smite steal. Someone has to mark Santorin.
Oh, Bjergsen just gets solo killed. Impact got rid of him. TL, it's time to go home. It's time to get the hell out of here.
He did get rid of him. It's like a pirate. Threw him overboard instantly. Nobody's going to see that body. They dodge. The Jinx rocket, it does not even explode. Good job from every Evil Geniuses player, but my goodness. Bjergsen walked in, face check Impact with a barrel and is not gonna live to even regret it.
That'll let you know that the Infinity Edge is done on Gangplank.
Yeah, buddy. Bjergsen gets keel hauled and Impact gets the money. Let's see what else EG can get during this 20-second death timer. Impact gonna keep leading the way. Danny will take out the last little bit of HP on the only remaining tier 3. Remember, the other 2 inhibitors are already dead. EG will secure this one. It's only gonna buy them about a minute of the double super minions on every wave because the other 2 inhibitors will respawn then. But EG might just go for the win before that happens.
Yeah, this is fun. You'd have Baron buff.
Oh, Sama! He's gone! There goes the carry, there goes the game. EG just found the pick they needed. Bjergsen wants to dive in and try to disrupt them. He's got to look for a miracle here. Team Liquid trying to defend their Nexus turrets, but they've already lost the one. JoJo stays alive with the stasis, and Bjergsen has no more smoke to hide in. He'll drop again, and Team Liquid collapses in front of EG, who take a commanding win in Game 1.
Smile on his face after that one, my goodness. Pummeled him under tower all game long. Never died on the Azir, 700 gold, the maximum bounty you can have here. Unkilled, unperturbed in game number 1. Evil Geniuses on the board.
That's how you play if you want to go to Worlds. If you're saying, hey, I really want to win this sucker, that's how you better be playing.
Absolutely. I mean, JoJo up over 6,000 gold in the 1v1 by the end of the game. Had the Flame Horizon, dominated in this one, absolutely. You know, picking up where he left off in that swing game, looking so good to start this best of 5. EG coming out and really showcasing how strong their team fighting can be. But you know, TL did have a good early start, and we have seen them really grow into their series. They have had some rough starts against FlyQuest, against CLG, and they have been able to pick up the pace game after game after game.
All right, Team Liquid, what else do you have in the tank? I have not liked when we see Team Liquid with melee solo laners. I think they have to have him on a control mage so he can play at range and have that sort of, you know, safer feeling for himself. The Sylas, the Akali, it has not worked out.
There's also got to be a difference in execution. They've got to execute better. That top lane fight, that was the first time where it really fell away from TL, right? You're up a couple thousand gold. Oh, all of a sudden my Lulu's dead. Oh, all of a sudden my Jinx is dead. Oh, all of a sudden we got Senna killing her in a cinematic camera shot with a plasma rifle. Like, that was not a good sign for them. So they're going to have to be able to go head to head with EG in these skirmishes a little bit better, or they might be in trouble. And while I continue to celebrate my birthday with all of my lovely friends here, we're sending it back over. Yeah, do I have it? Okay.
Got it.
We're going back to the analyst desk. Let's do it.
Thank you so much, birthday boy. EG strike first blood in the series against Team Liquid, and I want to go where Kobe already was, questioning some of the draft choices, particularly on the TL side. I see Trundle, I see Jinx, I see Lulu, and I go, ooh, this is looking pretty good for Team Liquid solo. And then what happened?
What happened is they decided to pick some pretty useless solo laners for themselves.
It actually just doesn't make a ton of sense, does it, Emily?
Yeah, so I know that Raz, I don't know if you want to elaborate more on this point, but like, it's not a terrible Akali angle. Like Raz was saying, he was talking to some people, and you know, like a lot of Akali players love playing into the Senna Tahm Kench. However, for Bjergsen specifically, and for the way that TL have been successful, I don't think it is a look that I would like to see from them.
Yeah, there's a lot of parts I don't like about it. I thought they were going to go triple bot lane bans at Danny. You take the Senna out there, give the Aatrox over, who cares? Because they're going to take the Azir for sure first pick. Yeah. Now you give them a pretty easy front-to-back team fight, and one of Danny's comfort champs, when TL in an interview was identifying him as a potential weakness. So that was weird to me to not actually pinch Danny all the way. You like half pinched him, but then still gave him what he wanted.
I was going to say, you pinched him into what was their best look in playoffs so far, which was him on Senna.
That plus the Gragas, I thought they were going to go full tank, and then he takes Grasp, but then starts building AP. I was like, there was multiple times where Bwipo just lacked that little last bit of damage that, like, if you just went the full AP, like, Sork with the Comet that most people do on
I
AP
wasn't
Gragas.
even going to make you guys discuss the build, but I'm glad you went there for me.
Right there.
Yeah, there were too many instances where they were trying to gain entry to, like, Dragon and stuff with just a frontliner who was going to soak up damage walking in. You'd assume, like, it would be Trundle or Gragas. Gragas would walk in, and then just his entire HP bar would just suffer. So I think it was kind of, it was rough from that perspective, and I can understand what Team Liquid is trying to do in game one, just saying, hey, let's give them, they kind of wanted to funnel them into Senna, Tahm, Kench, and Azir. It just flatly didn't work.
Yeah, sure. And to be fair to Team Liquid, the game started very much in their favor, right? We saw leads kind of being built across different lanes, but then a somewhat peculiar macro decision Solo made around Rift Herald.
Yeah, TL was doing a really good job. They got the early bot dive, and then they swapped for the Herald, but then they put the Gragas bot lane, and it seemed like EG was going to get a free Herald until JoJo decided to recall kind of out of nowhere, and then EG just decided to send it and pull anyways and try to fight a 4v4. And then TL kind of lucks out and gets the Herald. I think it's just complete strange macro decisions for both sides, and almost just complete flip onto what's going to happen for the early game.
Yeah, Mark, it was about midway through that Rift Herald dance that I think you said the whole last minute make zero sense.
Yeah,
like I just don't understand anymore.
Team Liquid has prio from their bot lane, like Solo was saying, so you can get first move on it, but then why did you send the Gragas bot with no TP, so you don't have numbers, but then they get numbers back because JoJo randomly recalls. So
and then the Smite Steal for the Herald kind of nullifies it all anyway.
And throughout the whole game, it was a lot of stuff like that. I think both teams are playing a little jittery. I think they understand the stakes, and they're maybe feeling a little pressure in some of their decision-making in terms of like side lane plays and whatnot. We were sitting next to Solo, and he's the king of drawing people towards him and, you know, getting things back while his team does other stuff. And he was pointing out how some of the fundamentals were lacking from both teams a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of this game was just like crazy TP in side lanes, make something happen. The only difference I thought was EG really didn't do a good job of pushing lanes whenever they did get like 4 or 5 people to come kill Impact. They're doing just a lot of weird stuff like farming camps or clearing wards instead of really getting pushed on tower. So I do think the macro does need to be better from both sides going into the next game.
Yeah, and something they can just continue to build off of, thankfully, is just like individuals performing well. For instance, like for Team Liquid, I thought Santorin played incredibly well this game.
Yeah.
Like the early replay that we had shown, actually, where he was anticipating, it seemed, the jungler being in the counter gank being there, flashed it, and was just playing out that 2v2 great, and in team fights. So like, this is very much a trend, honestly. Even when Team Liquid was performing poorly during like CLG, he was still the highlight player. So he's probably in the back being like, come on guys, let's get it together.
At the same time, JoJo was kind of that guy for EG. Goodness. We talk about some of the macro things, but individually, he was popping off this game. Feels like he picked up right where he left off, unfortunately, against TSM and Solo. He seems to be in his zone this weekend.
Well, and the fact that it was JoJo, and not to ignore actually what Impact was getting done in the late game too, obviously scaling on the GP. We saw him zero out Bjergsen in that kind of attempt to stall the Baron, but really it was JoJo who seemed to make it difficult for Hans to ever get more than a single rocket in just due to range.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to point out is like we tracked their game ones, right, where they've kind of lost in some horrific ways across this playoffs before like rallying and like bringing it together, right?
Absolutely.
Like using that loss and building on it. this game, they had their kind of patented regular season gold lead. And even though we weren't able to get the gold graph to populate, it crosses the line at about the same sweet spot that all split TL kind of struggled with, right, in that mid game, which is like closing out with their early advantages. And that's where a lot of these macro mistakes are coming in.
Yeah, so Mark, I don't know whether or not to be concerned about that, because technically it's an improvement.
How are you
right?
feeling about this one, Mark?
Technically, I mean, because they already always lose game one anyway, right? And so I'm like, at least we didn't fall into that hole. But if we can't win when we finally do start game one on the right foot, like, what are we thinking here?
Like Emily said, it's a bit of a return to form to regular season where they had these games where they get big leads and then struggle. Like Drake contest where like one time Bwipo just kind of like tried to run through EG and got killed. So like it is something that they've struggled with all year. And I think it's one of the reasons when you see all those accolades that we listed that like a group of veterans seems to be struggling at the mid to late game portion while they do have all the individual talent.
Unironically, this is a boost of confidence where at least they're like, guys, at least it wasn't as bad as the other first game.
Raz knew what I was doing. So I believe you had said it. You kind of expected them to hop over to blue side, or was that Mark?
Yeah, I mean, it's
That was you.
normal. You
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
switch sides early to see kind of what you're getting from each draft. And I think just going into the next game and the rest of the series, their bot lane is going to win every matchup. It seems like their bot lane is going to win, especially with the champion pool differences. I just need them to like hone in on that. Just win bot lane, win jungle, because Santorin's playing the best player out of their team, and just turn it into objectives. Keep it really simple. Put the other two on just like control mage and maybe just like a tank or like a bruiser type, and just like chill out, guys.
Keep it simple. Keep it simple.
Yeah, keep it simple. You don't need to outplay them with Gragas, Akali. You know, you don't need to do anything nuts. Just play around bot lane, let jungle like dictate the flow of the game, and I think they'll be having a much better chance.
All right, we're in for a wild one, ladies and gents. Now, during the 2022 Summer Split, use your MasterCard to make a purchase from the in-store client and save your card on file to be entered for a chance to win a trip to a LoL Worlds 2022 Finals event or a set of 9 Player of the Week statues and a MasterCard prepaid card. Entry period closes today, September 4th, so you better get in there ASAP. And then with this must-win series underway, I think both teams could use a little sage advice. Check it out.
So good.
And now, it's time for sage advice from a literal world champion.
Look, I get it, TL. You're a super team, built not only to win, but to dominate. At EG, you're the defending champs. And we've all seen your incredible improvement this year since MSI. You've worked all year long for this shot at the championship, and to represent the LCS at Worlds. Pressure is high, and things haven't gone as planned. It's been a bumpy road. You're in the lower bracket, and only one of you can continue your journey. For the loser, it's heartbreak, the end of your year, and maybe even searching for a new job. But when times are tough, it's important to look on the bright side. At least you're not Vitality.
This has been sage advice from a literal world champion.
Upgrade your shimmery slippers to keep sparkling.
Hey, Ash, what's your plan?
A new and very serious game, Jake from State Farm, but these in-game purchases are wrecking my wallet. I can't keep sparkling, Jake. I need a sparkle.
State Farm has options like combining home and auto, so you get a rate that fits your budget.
Very nice. The gameplay is really strategic, I swear.
For surprisingly great rates that fit any budget, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Call or click to get a quote today.
Red Bull gives you wings.